So we, after a fun time of needing David to get Medyhne and I organised on different time zones. Thank you, David. Not
Thanks,
my
David.
point. Yes. I am
That's okay.
really happy to be here with David Cowan and Medyhne. And I think most of my listeners do know both of you. But before we start, for anyone new, can we go round ladies first, with you just giving people an introduction to who you are and where they can find you on your own channels?
Oh, well, thank you, Catherine. It's just wonderful to be here with you and to be here with David. And I'm really excited about what we can talk about today. Oh my goodness, there's so much to cover. Probably be here for 5 hours. But I'm just an energy healer worker in Australia, and I work with individual clients. And I also have a soul healing group for Australia, where we're trying to shift the paradigm and what's happening energetically here. So that's Tuesday nights on Zoom. If anyone wants to join, it's a free group. And I am passionate about the liberation of Australia and the globe, and for people to reach their true potential and their sovereignty. And I'm very holistic like yourself, and also creative like David, with music, and I paint and I write books, and they're all on my website, so feel welcome anyone to go and check out my website. You just got to spell my name wrong. It's the right way, I mean, because it's really, really hard to spell and everyone gets it wrong. So that's the only hurdle. If you can spell it right, then you can find my website. But yeah, it's a joy to be here. And I just loved our chat last week. It was, I think, Catherine, and got so much to chat about. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And all David and Medyhne's website links and everything will be below this video when it goes up. So David, brilliant musician. David, I absolutely love your music so much. But tell our listeners a little bit about you in case anyone's watching you for the first time.
Thank you, Catherine and Medyhne. So my name's David, and I have been on this journey posting videos about what's going on in the world for the last, 9 months or so. And yeah, I used to be an accountant. I'm in marketing and copywriting, and I do music on the side, and looking to release a original track every month. That is the plan. And basically they're about things that are going on in my experiences, but mostly about what's happening in the world now. So some conscious music for you all. And yeah, as Catherine said, the links will be down below, so check me out if you can.
Fantastic. So today let's launch straight into it, because so much has happened over the last week. My best friend from school actually lives in New Zealand now, and I was having a chat with her at the weekend, and I think they're facing a similar situation in New Zealand to what you guys in Australia. So tell us what's happening over in Australia, and I know you're in different parts of Australia. So Medyhne, let's start with you. What have you been noticing, and then we'll go on to David.
Sure. Well, with all my holistic skills in maintaining my frequency, I must say I've had some challenges this week, because it has been pretty full on. It's just this constant barrage of news that is somewhat disturbing, So, for example, in Victoria, old DA, am I allowed to say the name? I don't want to get the general part, but the Premier of Victoria has been amping everything up, and the it's called the Public Health and Wellbeing Amendment Pandemic Management Bill 2021 or something, has been pushed through as quickly as possible. And, it's gone through the lower house now, and it just has to go through the upper house, and it gives him complete laissez-faire, carte blanche powers over everything, a la Hitler. And, so it's disturbing what can happen there. And as David was sharing earlier, there has been information now that people's bank accounts are being emptied, and they're saying that they won't be giving any government benefits anymore unless people are vaccinated in Victoria. In the part of the country I'm in, New South Wales, there's there was a law that, or not a law, a mandate, which of course we know these are unlawful anyway, but on the 1st of December, they were saying that the unvaccinated could participate again in sorry.
Let's try and not use that word, because people straight away, and I'm not very good at speaking out. So we'll just do this sort of thing, and I think our listeners.
Sure. You'll have to read that. Yeah. I'll repeat myself, and you can cut that bit out. Sorry. So they were saying that the people that didn't have this would be able to re-enter society on the 1st of December, and then they were behind doors having talks about changing that. And so you can just imagine they're trying to initiate that being extended, and these people being kept out of society even more, not allowed to attend cafes, restaurants, and so forth. And so there's a feeling of energetically, because I work with energy so much, there's oppressiveness, there's a feeling of the net sort of tightening. So we have to do everything we can with our tools and resources to rise above that, maintain a high frequency, trust that everything's going to be fine. I also heard an even more concerning story coming from a very reliable source that there's military training to actually work. I don't know if I should talk about it publicly, but to just be able to do this to people from their homes, and so we're hearing all this stuff. I don't know exactly what's disinformation or what's true, but extremely disturbing. And then on the other hand, there's the other narrative that Ricardo has been talking about, wonderful Mr. Bosi, that the white hats are starting to activate, after the end of October. If people are not on the right side of all this, there's going to be repercussions. So, there's the undercurrent of this also playing out. But of course, because it's hidden, they have to keep, I guess, all their all the things that they're doing hidden so that they're not interfered with. We can't see that. We don't know that that's happening. We can't. It's only conjecture at this point. So you have to maintain a very strong focus of trust and just an inner knowing that everything's going to be okay. But I tell you, it's not a fun place to be in Australia right now. And I was hearing a friend say she had, I think it was a friend in Czechoslovakia, and she said there's nothing happening there and it's all really good. I think it was Czechoslovakia, and I thought, oh my gosh, I wish I was in Czechoslovakia right now. But anyway, we're here for a reason, and we just have to, as they say, hold the line and just rise above it and just trust that it's all going to work. So that's my brief summary.
And before we come on, thank you, Medyhne. It's quite amazing, actually. I'm just going to say to everyone the date, because I've had loads of people quite rightly said to me, could we start the videos with the date? It's the 1st of November 21 today. I know it's not quite at the beginning, because loads of people keep copying the videos and putting them out months later, and they think they're current. I just really quite unbelievable, actually. David, what about you? What are you seeing? I know you've been very good at forwarding things on. David's got a really good Telegram group that I would encourage everyone to join. What have you been seeing, and how's the feeling where you are?
Well, pretty much just to parrot what Medyhne said, but what I want to add about the December 1st thing was that the reason why they are thinking about delaying it is because they had an outbreak in a pub in Bondi Junction, which, bear in mind, only the people that have had the thing can actually go to. So it's just stupid what they're doing. It's obvious. How could you can't make that up. Like, it's ridiculous. So they're blaming the people that haven't had it for the outbreak that, in an area where and there was a gym thing that you sent me as well. So this is just going to keep going. Like, we're just going to see more and more outbreaks, because the only people that can go to these places are the people that have had the thing. And I don't know when the penny's going to drop for people. Like, it's just ridiculous.
It's so obvious, isn't it, the agenda side of things, because nothing else makes sense. It's not, the arguments are not logical. They don't make any sort of logic. So therefore, clearly there's something else going on underneath about why this is all unfolding. And it is part of the whole agenda that has been planned so long ago to create complete control, break up the states into separate divisions. So they're all independently controlled. And, you know, this has all been planned so long ago.
It's really interesting. I mean, I've had quite a difficult weekend, actually. On a personal level, I've had a lovely weekend, but I have had some really quite nasty, unprovoked attacks by people as well. And I think with everything that's been going on with what you've been saying, as I said, had a long chat with my really lovely friend in New Zealand at the weekend. And there's this feeling of, like you were saying, Medyhne, of, you know, well, where I am, it's not that bad at the moment. I'm touching wood, everything that I possibly can. But we know it's coming, because we know we've seen this consistent theme of, you make something normalized somewhere else, so that by the time it gets to you, people are more accepting of it. And the thing that's really struck me this weekend that I'd like to get both your opinion on is, I'm really concerned by even the people that have got a very high awareness that something is wrong. Now, where you sit on that spectrum, to me, doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter how much of what we're being labelled as conspiracy theories you believe or not, because there's a whole different scale of beliefs available within that. But just say, talking to the people, that anyone that can see this is, you know, not what it's all made out to be, and it's certainly not about health. What I'm still finding really noticeable is the language that people are using. So even people that are very well aware that this makes no sense, and as David so rightly said, you know, the fact that they're shutting down places for outbreaks where only these people can get into is so ludicrous. But then people are still saying to me, awake people are still saying to me, well, of course, the test results have gone up, the case numbers have gone up. And I'm just like, I can't believe we're still using this language where people are even quoting test numbers when it was proven over a year ago that the tests are completely useless. So yeah. I think the programming has been so huge that all the while, there was a huge bunch of the brilliant doctors and lawyers right at the start of this, I'll be careful with words, and they were saying, you've got to stop calling this the V word, because it's not a V. But of course, it's so difficult to think of the other words and say it, that we say it for short things, even this, and we're implying that it's a V, and it's not a V. And it's a bit like the test. We've got to stop referring to the test as showing anything to do with case numbers and asymptomatic and things like this. But it's so ingrained in people's psyche and language now that they've been so successful with the mind work, brainwashing, haven't they?
Well, what I can say to that, and you know that they're saying things, quoting figures like 80% of people have it here in New South Wales, which I am doubtful. I've got a friend who has a friend muscle test kinesiology, and he says that the figures are more like 42%. So that's interesting. But you know what I boil it down to, what I boil it down to is what I read in a book when I was at school. You know, I was during my last year of school. And I read the book 1984 by George Orwell, and he talks about doublespeak. So it's like everything, you know, that we hear, we turn it around, and that actually has the opposite meaning. You know, things like, you know, Australia is a lucky country. You know, that goes into the psyche of the people, and they become very complacent. And they just go along with life, and they don't resist anything or stand up for anything, because they've got in their psyche, oh, we're in a lucky country, everything's great. But the truth of the matter is it's an extremely controlled country, and there's a lot of insidious things going on. So, you know, it's that double speak that we've been existing with in this life that has been from the younger stage, that really the inverse of everything that we've been told and we've been taught. We have to just turn it the other way and look at the opposite meanings often, because that's what the truth is. And so when that's so ingrained, you know, at that level. And I remember reading the book and thinking, Oh, this book is it's fascinating, but it's so dystopian and so bleak. And you know, the world isn't like that at all. The world's not like that. You know, it's a lovely place. The world, you know, it's benevolent. You know, now it comes to a point where I'm thinking, oh my goodness, he was exactly right. Everything that he was talking about was pretty, you know, unfolding at the moment. And so I think that sort of deepest level of programming in our education and everything from the earliest age is what we're striving to rise above and overcome. And your first reactive response to things is the thing that you've been programmed with. If you actually take time to think about things, you realize that things can be different. But when you react spontaneously or automatically, you go straight to the things that you've been taught like that. So we have to be very mindful and conscious in the way we function in the world, because it's not what we think it has been.
Yeah, how are you feeling about that, David?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's I've forgotten what what was the original lead in to the what were,
I think it was about the double.
oh, about the cases.
About the
Yeah.
language and the fact that even people that are quite aware that there's something up, and whatever level of the spectrum you sit on with that, and there can be many, that we're still using the language that supports the narrative in a lot of ways.
Yeah, well, in many ways, that's the only language we have, isn't it? Because that we haven't got an alternative unless we make one up. And what I think is interesting about the whole fact that, like, Australia's never had high case numbers ever, and which I think is a good thing, because A, they're probably fake anyway, but B, it's highlighting the fact that the thing that we're supposed to be putting into our bodies isn't working, right? And I think that is well, hopefully waking people up, because, you know, but then again, that was, if depending on how you look at it, it was never meant to work anyway, was it? Because if it worked, they wouldn't be able to do it every 5 months. So that's the whole point. It's not meant to work. Like, and the health officials even say that to you. They say it straight to your face. It's not going to slow the spread. It's not going to. You're still going to be contagious. You can still pass it on. So I don't know why people are getting it. Well, I do know why. They're fearful, but I don't understand why they're surprised that we're having these outbreaks now. And I mean, if you know the agenda, then you know that it was never meant to fix anything. It was just the illusion of fixing.
Exactly. Well said. There's over 200 ambulance workers in regional Victoria. My friend just heard today that have all walked out because they don't want to get this. Now, these are people that know what's happening and what it's doing. And of course, you know, you won't hear it on the mainstream news. You won't hear it. It's all completely suppressed and censored, this information, but they've all just walked out because they don't want that to go into their bodies. So, you know, people need to be really listening to other people in their community and hearing, because I'm hearing stories all over the place, everywhere, about what's been happening, because you won't hear it in any other way except maybe on a Telegram site. But yeah.
Can I just also mention that it's really interesting about, you know, that it's never been a big issue in Australia. Now, I don't know what and I know we can't generalize because so many things, but the general level of health of Australians. So take an example. Up until I wasn't allowed to travel anymore, I was going very regularly to Lithuania on business. And one thing that really struck me when I went to Lithuania is it was very rare to see an overweight person. Okay, they were fit, they were healthy, because they hadn't got into that life of excess. Now in the UK, unfortunately, like in the USA, we do have an obesity epidemic, but we are really bad in that respect, and there's loads of reasons for that. There's loads of reasons. Again, the brainwashing, the food that's available to people, the cost of food, the education system, etc. So a lot of people that are taking this are, the thing that's been quoted to me most often has been, well, we know it won't prevent transmission and things, but it will stop us dying from it if we get the word. But so will vitamin D, so will getting exercise, so will taking control of your health, so will eating a healthy diet, so will thinking positively. There's so many things that as humans that we can do that will empower ourselves for our mind and bodies to be in the best possible state for whatever might get thrown at us. But of course, when people have already got to a stage of unhealth, then I can understand why it's more of a panic for them, because they might be thinking, well, I haven't got time to put all these other things in place. So it's a very interesting scenario about, I'd like to ask in Australia, because I haven't been to Australia since 1990, when I spent a very happy year traveling around there. But what is the general state of health in Australia? Because I am wondering whether this poor state of affairs we've got of our general health of the general population in places like the UK is a massive contributing factor to the decisions that people make. What's it like where you are? Are people generally quite fit and healthy?
We're in the top 5 most overweight countries in the world.
I didn't know that.
It's like Mexico, Canada, USA, UK, and Australia. Not necessarily in that order, but I know Mexico is number 1. So
wow.
we are just as bad.
I agree. I agree.
We get told that the Australians are all fit and healthy and on the beach all the day. So the perception.
I think that's propaganda.
Marketing.
When you when you walk around the streets, I see many unhealthy people everywhere. Overweight. There's a lot of, the American diet as well that people have, and the fast foods, the takeaways. I personally don't think we have a very high level of health in terms of everything overall, and of course we're been highly toxified with the highest levels of fluoride in the water. We've got a lot of the chemtrails and all these other things as well that have been working against us. So our bodies do need a lot of detoxing, I think, here.
Do you think that, we know they've suppressed natural health. People, any holistic therapist, any natural remedies have been suppressed for years. I've been working in that area for 30 years now, and it's just an absolute nightmare. Legally, you've not been able to say anything constructive on websites or anything for ages. But we can now see this as a deliberate plan. And I was thinking, certainly my passion still has been for ages and still is to try and help give people choices for themselves and for their animals to take back control of their own health, because it's so wonderful when you do, and when you feel better physically, emotionally, and therefore spiritually, it's much easier to feel stronger, to take matters into your own hands and not comply. What do you think about that, David?
Oh, I completely agree. And, I like what you said. And I think it was the video that you did was it with Bryce? Maybe you were talking about the med beds and how you don't want, people shouldn't get into the position where they go, well, I'll just fix it with a med bed, but that's human nature, isn't it? We always just want to take the easy way out. And one of the ways they're marketing this thing is that it's better for your health. You inject this thing and then you get immunity, or well, maybe not immunity, but you lower your chances of dying. And people are lazy. That's why they're in that position they're in, because they just take the easier way out. So giving them something that they can just do that without having to change their diet or exercise or do anything else, of course they're going to take it.
I just read a really great article saying that actually this lowers your natural immunity.
Yeah.
So
that's part of it.
So
that's why they have the boosters.
Sorry?
That's why they have the boosters, because every booster you get, lowers the blood still count.
And
it kills your immune.
And people don't want to do the research. There's so much information out there, and I wonder also what sources of information they're coming from. So obviously, if it's mainstream, they might think they're doing their research, but they're coming from this one narrative, this globalist narrative, and so they're not able to access information that is actually going to give them the full story, the truth.
And also, I think, I had some visitors over and we ate like a big coffee cake. It was absolutely delicious. But when I'd eaten my coffee cake and had a couple of glasses of wine, I felt really lethargic. I couldn't be bothered to do anything because normally I'm a really energetic person, and my whole lifestyle, I have to be because I've got so many animals that I need to look after. I can't sit there and do nothing. But it's amazing how quickly eating the wrong foods for you will really lower your energy levels and also can send you into a depressive state. So I'm seeing people that, for example, are responding in very negative ways for them after that they've had, for some people it might be a few drinks, for other people it might be they've spent the weekend with people that have rubbed them up the wrong way and so they're on edge. It might that everyone's triggers are different. Some people it might be drugs, some people it might be that they've been working too hard or they're stressed over money. Whatever your trigger is, when you're in that stress state, you respond in a way that often you're not proud of. And it's really hard then for people to perhaps say sorry and get out of that cycle. And I think also I've seen a lot of people who say taken a decision perhaps to have something like this, and then they've almost feel backed into a corner. But there's not a single person on the planet that hasn't made decisions that they then, with more knowledge, would do something different. And it's so sad that we seem to have this human stubbornness that can keep us in repeating negative patterns rather than actually sort of let it all go and say, oh, did something that now I'm thinking differently about. Now I'm just going to forget about that, not put any blame or choice and move forward with different decisions.
It's fascinating that you've mentioned that, because I was thinking last night, I've got to talk about this with you tomorrow if I get the opportunity. And it's just what you've talked about, because now I notice that if I eat something like a cake or something like that, which I would have had before with no problem, you know, I wouldn't have had the repercussions. But now if I have a cake, I feel incredibly heavy and it's really, really hard to digest. And what I'm attributing that to also is that we're getting these higher frequency energies now coming down onto the planet as we're ascending. Our cells are changing and we're becoming more crystalline, and we're light, our bodies are lightening. So if we eat the same foods like that we used to eat before, we're getting much stronger negative effects than we would have previously. And I'm really, really noticing that now. So it's very important to change, you know, those old habits that we had where we're eating things and drinking things and consuming things that are of a lower vibration. Because if we do that now, it's going to have far greater negative consequences.
Yeah. David, where you are you still allowed to go to the gym at the moment or not?
Yeah, everything's open here. We're not on no mandates, no nothing. It's except the Premier initially said that he wasn't going to let anybody in from New South Wales or Victoria who, even if they'd had both of them or not. But now he's just said that he will, as of 4 days from now. So that's interesting. I wonder why he's doing that. But what I wanted to add about what you said just now about the negative, you know, the patterns that we keep repeating. Like there's a doctor who, I can't remember his name, but he's a big promoter of the thing. Like all over his Twitter, he's just massively promoting it, saying we're going to save the world and all this stuff. Anyway, his son got both and ended up in hospital. And he still promoted it after that. He did a selfie of himself in the hospital with the thing on, and is like, I'm in the hospital visiting my son. He just had second thing. But you should still totally give your kids it, because it's this rare occurrence, and it you know, the risks the benefits far outweigh the risks. And I went to his Twitter page to have a look, and you should see the venom that some of these people spit for people that don't want to have it. Like, it's crazy. You would like, it's mind blowing. They hate us. They absolutely hate us, and
it's making them angry.
It's crazy. And this guy had an injured son, and he's still promoting it.
That's a human ego. The human ego says, I'm right, and I'm not going to change my opinion because I'm holding on to it. So it's like the negative aspect of the human ego that doesn't want to admit that you may have been wrong, or that you have to see things in a different way. And so you just remain stuck in that same paradigm. Yeah, it's just such a shame that people are not open to it requires humility to expand and to grow and to admit you're wrong. And
Oh yeah,
some people
absolutely.
don't have that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? David and I have had some sort of interesting discussions about other areas where people are reluctant to change. So, for example, you know, I work a lot with animal health and things, and it's amazing how much people fight for their limitations. And it's just when you're aware, when you're consciously living in the moment and you're seeing what's going on, then you're much more likely to open, to notice problems quickly. So, for example, I've got two 30-year-old horses, which is quite old for a horse. And one of the horses, they're both rescues. One of them has come to me and he's got no grinding teeth left. And horses have to graze continually to stay healthy. They should be eating about 20 hours a day. So I have to now supplement him because he can't, even though he's out grazing the grass, he can't eat a lot of it. So I've had to learn a lot. I've had horses, you know, ever since I was a child, and I work professionally with horses, but he's taught me a whole new range of different skills that I hadn't had before because I hadn't come across this particular situation. So if I'd have stayed stuck in my old way, he'd be dead by now. You know, so I've had to adapt as the situation has adapted and learn new skills. And now I've learned those new skills, I can help pass those on to others who are in the same situation. And obviously I've learned a lot of my new skills from other people that have already been through this predicament. But that's just one example of the fact that our life around us is constantly changing, and we have to change with it. We have to keep an open mind that sometimes areas, is my lovely pumpkin here. Can you see him? He is magnificent, my pumpkin. He's
beautiful.
It's like this, we have to just keep being aware that the world around us is changing, that the information available to us changing. You know, when I was 18 years old before I ever had my first Chinese takeaway, because when I grew up, we just didn't have takeaway food. We lived in the middle of country. There weren't many takeaways. We couldn't get to them anyway because we were too far away. So we just didn't do it. So everything's always changing. And if you just stay stuck in your way of doing things, I think it's a very, very dangerous way to be. Any animal in nature has to be in harmony with their current environment. There's no point them behaving in the winter the way they behave in the summer. They die. And I think humans, we get very, because a lot of us we're out of touch with nature and with the natural cycles of nature, because we might be going to the same office job every day of the year. It's very difficult for us to perhaps monitor these subtle changes in our environment that any farmer or anyone working with animals or off the land would notice, and therefore we miss those early warning signs.
Yeah, I agree. We are, and there's never been a more evolving time
There's
than
a
now,
great saying
right?
that you can say, which is, I release all.
Sorry, the delay between us all makes us
Go ahead, David.
over each other. I think there's a bit of a
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that there's never
it's a
been
lag.
there's never been a more evolutionary time than right now, I think. I mean, maybe there's some in the past, but what we're living now is very interesting compared to, say, the last 10 years or 20 years or 30 years, right? So, like you said, Catherine, we're coming into so much more information, and it's what we do with that information that counts. Because we could just ignore it, or we can use it to our benefit.
Absolutely. Medyhne, what were you going to say?
Yeah, totally. I agree with that. You can look at it as a negative, or you can look at it as an opportunity for really enhanced growth and really accelerated growth. There's a great saying that you can say, which is, I release all attachments, ego, mindsets, belief systems that no longer serve me. And so if you keep repeating that, you're releasing all the old ways of being that are no longer in alignment with who you are now. And we're changing every moment, from moment to moment, especially at the minute. So, when you're able to actually release everything easily and surrender and let go anything which no longer serves you, you can really ride the wave of this opportunity for growth.
I think it's lovely. I think, you know, I love that, changing it into an opportunity for growth. And it is allowing yourself that sort of challenge, like, oh my God, like when I saw what was happening in Australia and New Zealand, and I was like, I must admit, I had that sort of like, God, you know, I really didn't think it would get that far. But then when you sit with that and then sort of say, this is my new reality, it's no different to, say, a pack of wolves in the wild and resources are short, so another pack moves into their territory. They have to accept it and adjust their behavior, because if not, they'll die. And I think, you know, this is the stage we're at now, is it's like there's a sort of, I think acceptance to me is very different to giving in. That to me, they're not the same things again. So accepting where we're at is for me a really, really important point to say, right, and what do we do moving forward? And just like you've both said, we can then take that time for whatever we need to all do to accept. And I was asking you about the gyms, David, because I know you're really active and a really fit guy. And for me, when I go out and do exercise, it gives me a renewed strength. It gives, my legs might be tired, but I feel a lot stronger. And I think, you know, making sure that people have that opportunity, whether they're things, the gym, whether it's playing football, whether it's going for a walk, whether it's riding a horse, whatever it is for you, because we've got to find those things where we can accept where we're at and then make conscious decisions about our next actions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that is one of the biggest things that we need to do, or a person needs to do, is really accept the reality of what of the situation. Because once you can accept it, then you can brainstorm or problem solve a way out of it, or whatever it is. I did a video with Dale a couple of days ago, and I said that, well, I came to the realization, or accepted the fact, that I may never travel again. You know, so it didn't bother. I'm not going to rush out and go get the thing because I want to go overseas. You know, I already said, okay, fine. I'm just not going to, don't have to do it. You know, I'm just going to just not go. And the more that you can accept, or the more that you can alter your existence as well, because a good portion of the reason why everybody's world got turned upside down last year is because they didn't really design their life in the way that they really wanted to. Even if they really loved their job, they still only had they didn't have the freedom to go overseas, you know, whenever they wanted, you know, all the restrictions aside, you know, you know, they still had a boss, they still had all these things. But in my opinion and my experience, the way to be able to minimize the impact of what happened last year is to put yourself in a position where it doesn't matter what happens, is that you can still do whatever the hell it is that you want to do, or that you can live your life and it's not impacted in such a way, you know what I mean? That,
yeah, sort of like autonomous.
I need to grow some food and
So you're
stuff. Like that's probably one of the biggest things.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
being self-sufficient,
Yeah.
but also
Yeah.
being able to work online, because that was a huge thing. Everybody ended up working online. I've been working online for the last over 3 years. And so that was, I think, one of the biggest things that impact people's lives, is the fact that they couldn't work, right? But if you took the time and the energy to create something for yourself that allowed you to do that, nobody had the foresight to see what was going to happen. But if you were in a job that you didn't like, then don't you think that would have been a beneficial thing for you to do anyway?
It's
you know, making a list of all the things that are joyful for you, you know, a list of 10 things, and then making sure that you put them into your week, so that you're raising your frequency and you're doing things that keep you in these higher states of consciousness. Simple things like that, you know, things that maybe that we haven't done for a while, but we used to do as a child, that made us feel really happy. You know, this is why these sorts of tools are really important right now. We have to really add to our toolkit, because before you could maybe potentially glide through and get by without or extra resources and tools, but now with everything happening, we've just got to really be mindful and work towards our own evolution in as many ways as we can, because that supports our own ability to go through this period of time as successfully as possible. And, you know, just hopefully we'll be able to get to the other end fairly soon, but we don't know when that finishing line will be.
No, we don't. And I'm finding it increasingly difficult to listen to things, because on both sides of the story, it's very, very hard to know what to believe anymore, isn't it? I mean, we've learned, I didn't realize, not being that techie a person, I mean, I've used technology all my life, but I've never been a video editor before and things, you know. Now I realize how easy it is to manipulate photos, to manipulate film, to manipulate what someone said by cutting and splicing things and everything.
Oh my God, I've got an example. My partner was on TV the other day, and they actually literally changed his wording.
Yeah.
And put it using his voice. So he said different words, and it was his voice. It was fascinating.
And this happens all the time, and this has been happening for years. We just haven't been aware of it. So I knew someone who was on a BBC Horizon programme, a documentary, and this must have been 20 years ago, so a long while ago. And it was very clever. What they did is they did an interview with this person, and then they did general discussion with this person. And then when they put the thing out on TV, they put different responses to the questions. Clever. I mean, you know, this is what we are realizing, is how much forethought has gone into all of this for years and years of planning. But now we realize it can be so easy to manipulate. And that goes on both sides, doesn't it? Because there's also things on the Telegram channels that aren't necessarily true. And I think it's really, really hard now to discern, and you just got to be really, really careful with all the sources of information. And I think people, you know, we had Red October, and we had Red October last year, for God's sake. You know, it's like it's constant. It's going to be this month, it's going to be this month. I mean, I'm really, Ricardo Bossi, please give us something. Yeah. Sounds amazing. You know, I can see why people get to the desperation stage. I think this weekend, or I've probably the last 2 weeks, really, I've really reached the stage of thinking we do really need something. We can't keep being told that it's all under control and all this is going on in the back end. And even when you're talking about the La Palma volcano and things, it's so amazing because everyone's talking about it different ways. There's lots of people saying, oh, it's okay, it's not going to hit the coast of America. But they're forgetting about, if it does go, all the other places it's going to hit in between. You know, there's so many other places that if it does go are going to be completely devastated long before it gets to the coast of America. And I think that's what I've realized, is it's very hard to put yourself in someone else's place until you're actually going through it. And I think, you know, that is a reality, and it's probably a survival mechanism as well for us all, because if you were constantly worrying about these things that might never affect you, your life wouldn't be worth living, would it? So sometimes some of these lack of ability to put ourselves in other people's is actually really good, because otherwise we'd all be miserable worrying about everything our whole lives, wouldn't we?
Yeah, it's just, I guess, emotionally, you know, if we attach to all the problems we see in the world at the moment, and all the sort of emotions around us and everything, we'd just be a walking wreck, you know. We just couldn't function. So there is a sort of a natural defense that comes up where we go into our own space, and I think that can be healthy in some ways. I guess it's a coping mechanism, and that non-attachment, which is non-attachment to things, is the source of you know, ascension, because otherwise attachment is suffering. So, you know, releasing attachment, staying in unconditional love in our heart space, and then being able to function in the world in a way where we're not, I mean, we don't know people's karma, we don't know their past lives, we don't know their soul history. And, you know, on some level there are no accidents. So there, you know, divinely there are no accidents. Everything happens for a reason, and we don't have the ability to see the big picture, which would be really handy, but we can't do that. And so we just have to trust that everything is in divine alignment. And even though from our perspective it doesn't look that way a lot of the time.
Yeah, no, you made some really good points, Medyhne. I think that, one, we need to emotionally prepare and spiritually prepare for perhaps maybe this thing not ending in the next month or two, like if the longer that you, like, let's just pretend it's another year. It may not be that long, let's hope not, but if you can prepare for the next year ahead, then you may be pleasantly surprised earlier, for one. And I think non-attachment is just so huge, because I'll use myself as an example. My MP3 player stopped working a few months ago, and it took me a while to buy a new one, and I ended up buying one. I didn't go with Apple as I normally would have. I went with this much cheaper alternative. And they sent it and it never arrived, and I haven't even replaced it. So I was like, do I even really need it? Like, what, all these things that we think we need. Like, I was even thinking about not even getting a new phone. Do I even need a phone? Like, I don't want to get another smartphone. I was like, maybe I just don't get a phone at all. I mean, being communicative being able to communicate is very handy, of course. But at the same time, do we really need all these things? Are we attached to? And you see it on the news every morning. They've got like a technology segment. Like, how much programming can you get? There's a tech segment every morning on this. Like, it's obvious what they're doing.
Yeah, the levels of surveillance and the tracking that comes with the phone, that's basically how they're able to keep track of us all as well. If everyone ditched their smartphone and threw it in the river, they wouldn't have that control in the same way anymore. Yeah.
I've seriously thought about it, because, I'm old enough to know I grew up where we had no mobile phones at all. We didn't have laptops. We didn't even have the internet for a long while. And it's so hard for younger people to accept that. And we were talking about the other day, and I don't think it's brought us forward. So one of my friends has got a daughter who's 17, and so going out now quite a lot with her friends at night. Now, when we went out at night as a group of friends, you stuck together. If you went out with your friends, you made sure you all got home all right, sort of thing. But now, with the modern technology, they'll go out, they'll change the plans at the last minute. They're really, really unreliable, because they can be. But with us, if you arranged, I'll meet you next Saturday at 8 o'clock outside the cinema, you were there because you'd made an agreement, and you couldn't get hold of each other necessarily. Now, we did have landlines, but with 3 daughters, my dad was very strict on how much we could use that. Otherwise, the phone bill was horrendous. But I think, it's looking at these things and saying, just like you were just saying there, David, how much do they add to our lives, and how much do they, take away? So as a parent now, if I can't get hold of my children, I almost panic, because it's so expected that I would be able to get hold of them at any time, any place. Whereas when I was growing up, my parents could never get hold of me. So you made arrangements and you stuck to them. So I just find it quite fascinating, really, in terms of taking a look at all our aspects, as you said as well, David. We have got to spiritually and emotionally prepare for the new world that we're going to be living in, and how we're going to help create that, and not worry about the things that we can't change. That is the thing. Can you change it? Yes. Okay, don't worry about it, do something about it. Can you change it? No. Well, there's no point worrying about it then, is it? And that's certainly a daily process for me, just making sure that I'm not worrying about stuff that I can't impact, but making sure that I do put my energy on the areas where I can impact.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That was something I wanted to add. You go first, Medyhne, because I forgot what it is.
I had a channel message that I'd love to share with you at some point, maybe just at the end, but it talks about an important way of dealing with the situation, because when you stand in your empowerment and you take sort of control of the situation, you feel a level of empowerment. When you just feel that you're being swept up in a situation that's beyond your control, there's an awful sort of feeling of being disempowered with that. So I'd love to share that with you at the end.
Brilliant. We'll finish off with that. David, what would you...
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. It really is. They've taught us not to trust ourselves in many ways. We think that we have no power, but we have all the power, really. When it really comes down to it, we just need to find it. We've got the emotional power, we've got the mental power, the spiritual power, if we all tap into it, and even the purchasing power, which is really the hugest, one of the biggest things, because we can bleed them dry if we want to. We just need to purchase consciously. Um, but what I did want to add was the fact that I've seen a couple of videos recently by different psychics saying that, and I was talking to Dale yesterday, and he was like, maybe everything happens in divine timing, right? It may just be, or maybe not just may, but it is written in the stars or written somewhere that everything's going to happen when it's supposed to happen, and it may just be right now that it's not supposed to happen just yet. But having said that, I have seen a number of videos from psychics saying that for some reason, a multitude of reasons, that November is supposed to be, and this is not a back channel telegram thing that you get all these information saying, yeah, October is going to be good. This is people that hopefully are independent of that, and they're saying that November is astrologically and for other reasons is going to be a really big month, an interesting month. But it's not like everything's going to end in November. It's going to start a domino type effect where something will happen, or a number of things will happen in November, which will then you'll come to fruition maybe in December, January, February, and things like that. So, look, I really do hope that's true, because I think we can all agree that we really do need something big, whether it's, and I don't know, it has to be something, because we're all
in the meantime, I've got a suggestion, and this is a really great technique that really helps people. So I encourage everyone to visualize your favorite superhero, and it might be Wonder Woman, it might be Superman, Batman, whoever you resonate with, and just visualize and picture that person in front of you, and just feel yourself connecting to that energy, and how they familiarize yourself with their energy and their empowerment, and how they're feeling their courage, their strength, all those qualities, and feel yourself sort of merging with that energy and just connecting with that energy, and become your own superhero within the context of your own life, of what you're going through. And it's just quite a great visual technique for people to work with, that can really help people to feel empowered for some people.
I've got to find one now.
Superhero.
So, anything else before we finish? Anything else from you, David, that you wanted to say before we finish? I've loved this chat, ladies and gentlemen. I have absolutely loved it, because I love the fact that we can just talk through all these things with you two. I really do, and I love both your perspectives on life. So, anything else you want to say before we finish this chat, David?
No, I just want to say these chats always lift me up. It was obviously great to speak to you both, and when you have it, it does allow you to process things better when you can verbalize it out loud. And I really just do hope that I think things may get worse before they get better, unfortunately. And I don't know if I think we'll know when the time is coming, if you know what I mean. Like, I think we'll know when things are about to be like the shit's going to hit the fan. Unfortunately, I don't think it's here yet, but when it happens, we'll know. And then it's always darkest before dawn. That's the message that I keep seeing. So when the sun rises, then things will start to get better.
Yeah. Oh, it's been wonderful for me to chat with you both. I feel better myself as well after I've chatted with you both too. It's a great way to vent your the things that are in your mind, and release things that you're holding. When you hold it in internally and you don't express it, it can create more discomfort. So once you express it and talk it out, it really does help. So I'd love to, if I could, share with you a channeled message. I think it's quite a powerful one. So would that be okay, Catherine?
That would be lovely. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And thank you so much again, both of you. I've just loved it. And to be able to chat with your wonderful audience, Catherine, is a real privilege. So thank you. And I'd love to chat with you both again soon, because I really love both your energy, and it's a joy to chat with you both. Thank you.
Definitely. So are you going to do that, or are you going to share your screen? Do you need me to allow you to share your screen, or are you talking through the channeled message?
I could try and share it as well. Yes, here it is. Okay. So I'll read it out as well. It is now time for everyone to break the spell the people of Earth have been under. The small number of controlling forces who have lost their higher dark commanders that try to keep their control over you must know from each person that they no longer rule you. It is up to every person now to make their inner voice known, to shout and act loudly that the control over you is merely an illusion. I do not consent. Fear is what holds this illusion in place. Each person must now claim this freedom and sovereignty. After thousands of years, it will not just fall in your lap. You are required to claim it. Individually, as well as globally, you are now being given a spiritual test. How much do you want your liberation? Is it worth fighting for? Is it worth the discomfort to stand in your truth and do everything you can to halt the false imprisonment structure you have been existing under? We ask you to dig deep into your spiritual core and stand up like never before. Your soul and generations to come will thank you.
Wow, that's lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's a perfect way to end on. And let's definitely do this again. And Medyhne and I will be better with our timekeeping next time, David. Thank you so much, both of you.
I hope I've been able to come off that image. Have I come off the image okay?
No,
it's
still there, but that's fine. We can do that.
Oh, sorry, I'm not sure how they come off.
You stop share. That's fine.
Oh, okay, got it.
Thank you so much, both of you, and we will speak soon. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Take care.
Thank you, you too.